We have multiple Boston Bruins trade updates as a recent report has dropped a new information on Pavel Zacha going into a potential deal as well as a name that has been included in any sort of trade talks. We're going to be breaking that down as well as going over the thought process behind Don Sweeney here in this supposed move coming up for a second line player. And we're going to be breaking it all down here in this video as well as why some of this really makes no sense for the Boston Bruins here at this moment in time. But before we do jump into this, so ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't already, be sure to hit the sub button. We have a lot of Boston Bruins news coming to you guys throughout the rest of this month as we get closer and closer to the start of the Bruins regular season. And we have a lot of stuff to cover. You won't want to miss it. And we have a lot of more information on these types of trades coming over the next month. So be sure to hit that sub button if you haven't already. But we need to jump straight into this because starting off today, a recent report from RG.org has broken down the Montreal Canadiens side of a deal that involves Pavel Zacha, a player that has been linked to not just the Montreal Canadiens, but many other teams and several times. But the Montreal Canadiens have really seemed to be the ones that are all in on any sort of Bruins second line player that they currently have. Now, whether that is Casey Mittelstadt, whether that is Pavel Zacha, both have been very, very adamant on, having this move to the to the Montreal Canadiens from the Boston Bruins, according to these reports. But we need to jump right into what RG.org had to say, and saying the Canadiens definitely have interest in Zaka and have inquired about him, but they're not the only team. The source told RG recently several teams, I'm told the Flames are one, continue to express interest in him. So going into the whole deal that is regarding Pavel Zacha, the market seems to be heating up now as we're getting closer and closer to the season. But we've already had numerous names, numerous teams be linked to Pavel Zacha and Casey Mittelstadt, and they seem to be more shifting now towards the sole name of Pavel Zacha. But as we get closer and closer to all these types of deals and, reports and rumors that are coming out, the Boston Bruins still are the team right now that seem to be trying to get better. And getting better does not entail trading Pavel Zacha, and we're going to jump into here now in a moment, another part from RG.org on Don Sweeney. But going in throughout this article and really breaking it down piece by piece, they have to say this. It should be noted that RG has heard Struble's name connected to the Bruins before. The rugged 6', 207-pound left-shot defenseman who just turned 24 is expected to battle it out for the third pairing slot on the Canadiens' blue line in training camp. The Bruins amateur scouts would have seen plenty of the Cumberland, Rhode Island native when he patrolled the blue line for St. Sebastian High School in Needham, Massachusetts, and also in Northeastern University. So he's a pretty familiar player in the surrounding areas, and the Bruins scouts are also very familiar with Jaden Struble, and Struble's name has been the one that has been linked to Pavel Zacha in this instance, as well as many other teams for the Canadiens who they're trying to get a number 2 center, and looking at the way that this would work out solely on paper without the implications this would have on not just the Bruins, but also the Canadiens, these are the reports that are being linked. Now, also, if you're a Habs fan listening to this video, or you're trying to get a different perspective, go check out Habs Digest recent video, of course, our co-channel or co-company channel. We have a very interesting thing from Josh there on his side of it with the Montreal Canadiens and the Boston Bruins, so I will link that in the description below. But as of right now, Jaden Struble seems to be the one that has been really being pushed by the Montreal Canadiens to any team regarding a number 2 center, and the fact that Pavel Zacha has been their main target, at least from what it looks like, I believe it's them and Mason McTavish and Pavel Zacha for the Montreal Canadiens. We have to take a look at how this would really impact the Boston Bruins because, of course, Jaden Struble, a left-handed defenseman, 24 years old, new contract. But how would he fit with this Bruins team? And I mean, taking a look at how things are right now in here, we really do not have much room left on this left side. I mean, Elias Lindholm, Nikita Zadorov, Mason Lowe right here on this side. Jordan Harris, former Montreal Canadian as well, if you have to remember. Victor Soderstrom as well. That is going to be on the right side here for, a 7th defenseman if they're looking for someone there. There are so many defensemen on this team that we're going to jump into here in a moment on a screenshot that I have that are waiting to make their break in the NHL. So continuing to add and getting rid of one of your better centers here on this team really puts the Bruins in a very tough position to go out and try and become a better team. And especially when you're looking at not just a 1-for-1, likely wouldn't be just that, but when you're going and trying to add players to help out a lot of the younger players on this team and thin out the kind of, middle 6 type of players that this team has. Now, going in, continuing on from RG, they have to say, while the trade doesn't seem to be imminent at this point, Another source, told RG that a different trade scenarios have been discussed. While no other names were confirmed, the sources confirmed that the Canadiens forward prospects Joshua Roy and Oliver Kapanen, as well as defenseman Jaden Struble, are names that continue to bantered around the NHL trade chatter regarding the Canadiens' search for a second-line center. So we're having more names thrown in the mix here as well, who are not as prominent as Jaden Struble in these conversations. But when you do look at a guy like Joshua, Oliver Kapanen too, as well, very young forward players that the Montreal Canadiens have attempted to work into their lineup, mainly Joshua, who's been in there for a little bit at this point. They are two interesting options when it does come down to it. And although this Bruins team does have quite a few centers on this lineup that really can kind of jump in here and, really work up and down the lineup, as well as a lot of younger players that are coming into this lineup over the next couple of years, it will be interesting to see whether they go out and try to make a move like this rather than going and acquiring a defenseman. They'd go out and make a move for a guy who, at this point right now, doesn't seem to be cracking the Montreal Canadiens roster, but could have a very interesting slot on this current Boston Bruins roster, which will be a bit of a mix next year, I think is a good way of putting it when you're coming down to it. But I mean, the defensemen, they're locked up. The forwards are really where we're looking at some more interesting things. Now, Jaden Struble, although he is only having, about a full season total in the NHL over 2 years, he's pretty solid. There's no doubt about that. But when you're coming down to take a deep dive into how he would impact this Boston Bruins team, it solely is the positioning on him rather than other players that would not make this trade make too much sense for the Boston Bruins here, like I mentioned, at this period in time, with the defense already so locked up and, kind of ready to go at this point. And I mean, you take a look at the defensive prospects here, or the defensive players in the system. You have Jordan Harris, Victor Soderstrom, as I mentioned, likely the two kind of 7th and 8th defensemen for whoever you need. But then you go down the list, the more you keep on going, the more players you see that are going to be already at the NHL level ready to go, can be at the NHL level this year, or over the next 2 or 3 years, will be ready to be at the NHL level. So adding a 24-year-old, just turning 24 years old 3 days ago, to this roster just makes some more complications on the defensive side of things here for this team. Now, going into what Don Sweeney's kind of mindset is behind this, RG also had this to come out and kind of put the idea behind it, saying, Donnie, Bruins GM, General Manager Don Sweeney, is not shopping him. The second source above told RG, this is just him doing his job and listening. I don't see him as something that would happen before the American Thanksgiving. If the Bruins get off to another brutal start and the holiday trade freeze is looming, well then this could become a lot more of just listening, but that goes for the Bruins players too, not just Zaka. So as we've been kind of going over as well, really not too many players are overly safe heading into the next couple of seasons when you have a guy like Casey Middlestat, who I think, once again, is kind of in that boat as well, where you wait on him. You're not going to trade him before the season, but you want to see how he performs. If he is underwhelming, there's been reports of him going on waivers. I don't think that really makes sense. I think there's many teams that would be looking for him, even at a cheaper price. With that cap hit, is still fine. Pavel Zacha, maybe even some players on the defense, even though that is a little bit less likely for me. And also taking a look at how many kind of bottom 6 players this team added, while they already have a lot of younger players trying to crack the bottom 6. So going over Don Sweeney's kind of mindset here, seems to be listening to anything, but not really acting upon it just yet. But it is safe to have a lot of these conversations going and in the back of your head when you're getting towards the the Christmas break and the trade freeze over the holiday break. And especially after American Thanksgiving, I think is probably the earliest I would actually go ahead and make a trade that includes an impactful player. So I want to know what you guys think about that as well, but I do want to jump into a few more things here before we do finish the video off. And I mean, taking a look at the offense, kind of as I mentioned in the last few points, recent acquisitions of Tanner Jeannot, Mikey Eyssimont, Sean Corrali, adding them back to the team, Victor Arvidsson here on the second line. I mean, those are 4 players who are all, a little over 30 or close to 30, players that will be here for a couple years, likely, unless they do end up getting traded. Pieces that likely could be moved to playoff teams here at the trade deadline, all apart from Tanner Jeannot, really, for a, that kind of contract that he has. But there's a lot of options here for the Bruins to move out some of these players, whether it is to try and get better, whether it is to try and go ahead and get some draft capital. There's a lot of options here that the Bruins could work with, and I think that they're going to be taking a lot of time with their moves, taking a lot of time and thought process behind everybody here on this lineup. And that also goes for, I'd say, a lot of these younger players as well that are a little bit uncertain of how their career path is going to go. So The Bruins here, and kind of this move in specific with Pavel Zacha and the information we got here today from RG.org, really puts a new mindset on things where we come into this team, take a look at it, and see how things really could change another season like this with the trade deadline last year, how it could all really merge into the big rebuild that we've been seeing from this Boston Bruins team. So adding on to the Pavel Zacha stuff here as well, I want to know what you guys think in the comments below about these other moves that could be made here. I mean, this is a very interesting conversation to have at this point now when we're just under 30 days away from the NHL regular season, and we're continuing and getting more information regarding Pavel Zacha and how everything has sort of been trying to play out over the last couple of days and weeks. So we have more information on the Montreal Canadiens looking for it. We now have some names from the Canadiens here in conversation. It's also wondering what other teams may be involved here in this deal. So, we're going to have a lot of updates regarding this continuing on through the month of September as we get closer and closer to not just the preseason, but the regular season as well. And more moves are going to be made. So I'm going to be keeping you guys updated with everything here. But that is all I have in this one. If you did enjoy, give it a like, hit the sub button as well. I'm signing out though. Thank you for watching. Hope you have a great day. See you later.